do I owe you? Is this a tithe? Are you just trying to make out with me? You're being awfully forward, buddy. Oh my gosh. No, I will not make out with you. You have enough love. You don't need this much love. You have too much love. This is not cuddle time. Right, this is not cuddle time. You need to relax.
And welcome to the video. It is definitely a deload week for me. Body's just been feeling real tired all week, and so I'm just listening. I'm doing my best to listen, and while it's not the most exciting thing, it definitely is an important piece of the puzzle for the long-term adaptation of everything. And also, just early on, it can be really easy to think, well, I'm going to skip all this stuff because I'm not even running that far. It's not even like I'm putting in 30, 40, 50 miles in a week and think that I need it less. But actually, I would argue, and this is from, 15 years of training and almost 15 years of coaching, that you actually kind of need these sooner when you're early on because you don't have that adaptation. And so that's just, fortunately, unfortunately, fortunate to know and understand to be willing to listen to this. Unfortunately, it means a pretty boring week of training. So what we're going to dive into in this video is running as an amputee. What are the differences? Are there differences? And we're just going to go from there. So the first thing we're going to dive into after I get done walking the pup right now, once we get done with that, we are going to go home. We are going to talk about the logistical side of running as an amputee. We're going to talk about equipment and what changes.
So let's dive in from a logistical viewpoint on what is and isn't different as an amputee when you've made the decision we're going to run. So first and foremost, I think it's a really important mindset if you're an amputee watching this, especially if you're an amputee watching this trying to gain information. If you're here watching because you are supporting me just in general, thank you very much. If you're an amputee and you're looking to gain information, I think that I'm going to start with mindset on this one, actually, as we get into the logistics. So understand that it gets really kind of ingrained sometimes, and I've viewed from a distance, I've been asked to be a part of and have participated in this conversation around, well, what's the differences? What does an amputee need to do to run? And I think it's really, really valuable and an absolute superpower if you kind of drop that line of thinking. I'm not saying that there's no differences. I'm saying that trying to dwell on what's different oftentimes leads to people not doing it instead. Like, that's kind of the reality of what tends to happen there. So understand that running as an amputee, just like a proper deadlift as an amputee, a squat, a press, an exercise, any exercise, walking, those proper mechanics don't change because I lost my foot. How I have to get there, the journey that I take and the experience that I have with that is a different piece of the puzzle. And also take a little solace that everyone has a slightly different experience. Our path is just a little bit more, the detour is a little bit more determined. So I think we're going to start there. So in this video, we're getting into what are the differences between and what do we need to know running as an amputee. That's the first thing we need to know, is that the experience and the path we go are the differences. Running, not so much. So first and foremost, I have started with everything off with my residual limb out very much on purpose because the first logistic that we have to take care of as an amputee is skin. Skin integrity, making sure that we don't damage the skin is a really big deal. And again, I talked about already, I said something about like the experience is different. The main points are not. This isn't really any different than any other runner protecting their feet and taking care of their feet. They have to do that. The difference is the consequence that comes with not. Like the consequences that come with the skin breakdown can be a lot bigger than getting a massive blister on your foot. Maybe you can't wear your leg for a week because we've broken skin and If we continue to wear it, it's going to make it worse. And then we start inviting infection in. These are the things that we have to take care of. So I'm going to get into some of the common things that get talked about. Then I'll talk about what I personally do. And I'm going to stress this probably too many times. What I do doesn't need to be what you do. There's a lot of options out there because there's a lot of different ways people are having success. They wouldn't exist if they didn't have success. Just like the dog may bring multiple toys because he's had success at different times with different toys and getting me to play with him. And he desperately wants me to play with the rope toy right now. So there's 3 basic things I'm going to talk about when it comes to sweat management. So that's our most base layer thing. That's like the overarching, that's what we're taking care of. We're going to go over 4 things. The first thing, this one's the universal one. This one does apply to you. If you have a pulse, what I'm about to say applies to you. The number 1 tool, trick, tip, whatever you want to file it under, for sweat management inside of a socket, regardless of activity, is consistent and quality nutrition and hydration. The better our nutrition is, the more consistent it is, the more consistent this shape is going to be. And the more consistent the shape is going to be, the more it's going to be like what you made that socket for, which means you're going to have less likely to move around. Also, it's going to make your sweating more manageable. Like if I eat quality diet 4 days and then like Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday, I just go off the wall and I have a Pizza Hut, McDonald's sandwich, my sweating the next day is going to be far worse. I'm probably going to be a little bit inflamed. I'm not going to fit as well, and I'm going to sweat a lot more. Well, that's a problem. That's a lot more to manage. So the number 1 in management is your nutrition. It's what goes in your mouth, your food and your water. Making sure that we are adequately hydrated on a consistent basis and consistently consuming quality food. There is nothing that works better than that. Plain and simple. So from there, there's 2 more, and these 2 I have not personally ascribed to. One I have tried and I didn't like, and that's the prescription antiperspirant route. I believe it's called Certain Dry. If you go on any Facebook group where someone asks about sweat, you're going to have at least one person go in there and swear that that's what they have to do. One, you don't have to do anything. That's a big red flag to me. When people in this community are saying they have to do it, what that is they saw success and they think that if you don't do it, that diminishes their success. It doesn't. It's nonsense. Take care of you, not their feelings. So Certain Dry is like a prescription antiperspirant. You put it on. I don't remember what the frequency is. My skin didn't love it. It wasn't like a big deal. Like it didn't like break my skin out or cause ingrown hairs too much. My skin didn't love it though. But also these antiperspirants are loaded with heavy metals like aluminum as a primary active ingredient. And you can go hop on Google to go with that. Not a problem that I'm trying to choose later on. I'm not trying to save a little bit of sweat to deal with the problems that we're seeing down the road with years and years and years of usage on something like that. And at 35, that would be years and years and years of usage. So I've not gone that route. Not a fan, but you're a big kid. Make your decision. The second one I have not tried because it's just not been enough of a problem. And experiences may vary. I haven't heard anybody say this doesn't work, but I've heard people say that the experience of getting it done was just not worth it, and that's Botox. Literally getting a ton of Botox injections all the way through. It works on like a little grid. It's, from what I can tell, it's a long day. It is a long day with a lot of needle pokes into your residual limb. Again, it's just not been a big enough issue. I take care of my nutrition, and I don't need something quite that invasive or that, I don't know, extreme feels like the wrong word, but it feels a little bit extreme to pin cushion your leg like that for sweat. So I haven't needed to explore that route. I'm just not saying yay or nay on it, and I hope I never get to a point of saying yay or nay unless there's a really good reason, like nutrition. So I've not gone the Botox route. The route that I've gone and been successful is sweat socks, and one in particular. So this is the Valor sock from Swiftwick. So this is a very high quality material. These are actually the socks that I pretty much use exclusively in general because I like a nice sock. My little rich guy extravagance dream, I wouldn't do this even if I had the money, would be to wear a brand new pair of socks every single time I put on socks. So I do appreciate a good sock. And what sucks as an amputee is most high-end socks, whether or not they are more athletic or more aesthetic, they are tailored left and right, which makes a lot of sense if you have a left and a right. I don't want to pay that much for a pair of socks that I only get to use one of them. So Swiftwick, being one of the only ones that doesn't tailor, I've been using their socks for a while, and then my prosthetist put me onto the Valor sock, and it took me about 1 hour to text him back after I put it on for the first time and saying, you should be giving these to everybody. So it's a good moisture wicking material, and this is what goes on first. The Swiftwick, the Valor sock goes on first. I like the sizing to go a little bit past the knee. When it's a little shorter, it has a tendency to kind of slide and rub, and we don't want that. To the best of my understanding, the way it was explained to me, because it sounds a little okay, but it does seem to work like this, and why sweat becomes a big issue. No matter your liner type, and we'll go over that in a second, there's nowhere for sweat to really go, and gravity is going to put it at the bottom. So you start sweating a lot, and there's not a lot of space, it quickly starts to pull up, and then now maybe this much of your residual limb or more is swimming in sweat, which can cause the liner to start to move around, which can cause movement inside of the socket. And now we are rubbing, being soaked in water, and the sweat, salt water is now making everything a lot softer. That skin is now more prone to breakdown, and the snowball rolls the wrong way down the hill. These little channels right here are supposed to funnel that up, and I have found that between my elevated vacuum system and these socks, the second I put those two together, sweat became way less of a thing, because what would happen, or what I noticed a lot more, was that the sweat would actually work its way out the top. It's this fun thing. You ever run behind me after I've gotten sweating good and well, you'll see the back of my left short leg, whatever you want to call it, will be soaked because it will go out the back and not the top, which is great because I don't want it in the bottom. So that works out very well for me. That is why this is my choice. Now from there, liner goes on next. There's a lot of different liner styles. I use the urethane liners from Autobach, and these work best with a full elevated vacuum system. So that's why I use them. I have chosen performance there over ease, and you'll explain. This guy. So the only real drawback, and everything has pros and cons, the only real drawback is I can't just put this thing on. It'll get stuck on itself and it won't roll on the way that it needs to. So I've got this little alcohol water concoction, spray it in there, and then this is going to lubricate it and allow it to roll on so that it is perfectly connected with me, which connection is everything. I'm going to use that word a few more times. And like I said, so I talk about, the choices and all that. So now this becomes like a choice. So now this is an extra logistic, that I'll have to carry with me, like when I get into racing and stuff like that. I will need to have some of this water alcohol spray, and I can use just water, but I don't want to use my drinking water, and I'd rather use this. So slides on, bada bing, bada boom. I can wait for it to air dry. A towel will be another extra piece of the logistics that an amputee is going to need as they get into a longer format of racing, like I'm looking at with ultra marathons. And so there's 3 different kinds of suspension systems. There might be some middle grounds that I'm unaware of, but I'm going to go over the 3 basic ones. And so I use what's called a fully elevated vacuum. You see this little puck-looking guy on the back of my socket? This is a vacuum pump. And this sleeve right here creates an airtight seal at the top. This vacuum pulls air out, and then that creates a very strong suction fit connection between, that's why my leg's not going to come off. Between the sleeve and the vacuum, that leg's not going to come off for that reason. It also prevents a lot of movement because, again, it gets all locked in place. That's what I like the most. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum would be a pin lock system, which is a completely mechanical locking system. You'll actually literally see a pin that's right here on the bottom, and I'll put a picture up. And that is, again, a mechanical lock. There's a channel in the very bottom of your socket that you will click in, and then that's not going to break like that. That's what I got put in to start. And to be honest, like for me, I did not like it. And the second I got out of it, I wished, I have the experience. It's cool. But I was like, man, never needed to be in that thing. Also, apparently my amputation was designed around elevated vacuum. I'm fortunate enough that my surgeon and my prosthetist now actually were very good friends, and they talked a lot to each other, and he learned how, and that's one of the things he learned. He was a reconstructive plastic surgeon. So we built it around this a little bit as well. So another reason why this system is very much for me. Also to note, all these exist because someone's having success with them. If nobody was having success with it, they would be pretty much extinct. And so in the middle ground of your pen lock system and your fully elevated vacuum, we have a passive suction system. And the liners look like this. You'll see that little plastic ring around it. What that does is that locks it. And whereas like for me on my leg, I get like suction all the way up past my knee. The suction then applies from that ring and below. And so it's very much I've used that one as well. I liked it way better than the pen. But again, everything clicked the day I got put into true elevated vacuum with the pump. Again, big fan. And it's also exciting to find the thing that works for you. You will see I see a lot of runners that actually use the passive suction, and I've considered it. I've thought about it. It's just not something I've gotten into. And I'll get into a little bit more of why on that one here in a second as well. So you've got I can put my sweat sock on. I've got my liner, and then now I've got any sort of fill-in. So with this liner, the fully elevated vacuum isn't going to like grab onto this the way it needs to. So I'm very fortunate. Again, I take care of my diet. I work very hard on that stuff. And so I am only using a sheath. So it's the thinnest layer available because that's just where my fit is right now. I'm in a really good spot. And so I use a sheath that you may see different levels of thickness when an amputee takes their leg off, and just socks to fill in remaining spaces. They shrink. Maybe they're due for a socket. It's not done. Yada yada yada. There's a lot of reasons. Socks are fantastic, and especially as you do a sport like this that runs, that like where you're going to sweat a lot. If you're somebody that's losing volume, having socks on you is going to be a big part of the running experience, like in learning how to get that. I don't know what a Juneberry is, but the flavor tastes very good. So that's layer kind of number 3, which is kind of, fantastic. There's a reason why I wear shorts all year. That's like the next piece of the puzzle. And that's a lot on know thyself. You have to know, just because if you're somebody that fluctuates a lot, you should be carrying socks with you. There's also another product called the EthnoCare Overlay. I'll put that on the screen. If you are somebody that fluctuates a lot, I think you should look into this one. Instead of socks, it fills in with air, and it's like custom sock play, and that's pretty sick. So shout out to EthnoCare, nice guys. If I was in a less stable size and fit situation, there's no question that that's what I would be using. So from here, now we finally get to put our leg on. So again, like I said, I use this elevated vacuum system, so it requires a sleeve on top. I will just push the button, and it's really simple. The vacuum, I did not get up to play. I know, it's weird. So I don't know if you can hear that, but it's got that little, that little zzz, and that's literally just pulling air out. And you'll see these lines start to come in. And what that does, that's creating a tighter and tighter custom fit that's nice and strong. This is what I prefer. And so now we'll get into running feet. Prosthetics operate and live on a spectrum of force absorption and energy return. And so like your softest, easiest to walk in leg is going to live over here on force absorption. It's going to do some work for you, and you're just walking. So the demand and how much return you need is much less. So it doesn't provide a ton of that. And then you've got all the way on the other side, you've got like a running blade. This does absolutely nothing to absorb force. It is pure return, and it has a ton of it. That's how wild and incredible the technology of a human foot and ankle is they can do all of these things. I use 5 feet, and I'm only kind of sort of replicating what your foot's just kind of ready to do, and switch between if you are somebody that uses it. You know, if you don't use it, you lose it, of course. But all that option exists in here. It's pretty freaking cool. So in terms of feet that can run, again, we got the extremes. We don't have to be all the way here. Like, for example, the foot that I use for my everyday foot, my walking foot, actually does have enough energy return that you can run in it. I use the Oser ProFlex Terra. It's newer. There's also the All Pro from Phil Hour, and then Levitate's Forever Foot. Those are 3 feet that I know of that you can jog in. You're not sprinting. It's not what I'm looking for when I go run, but I like a little bit more of an athletic foot for the things that I do. There's 2 things that going on with my particular setup. I use a quick change system. This is from Levitate. You picked a great time to be here, buddy. So it's really simple. I've just got 1 pin. I use this 4mm wrench, which will also be a part of my kit because everything on a prosthetic device is done with the 4mm. You can see right here, it's just this 1 pin. Pulls off, nice modular system that we've created. It's got this little plug-in that goes on top of the feet. So again, it's got the same deal. See how smooth this is. There we go. Boom. And then from there, it's really, really simple. Boom, boom, boom. And now I'm ready to run. And so like that's the system I like because I've got a socket and I love it. It fits very well. I'm in a great place, and 2 sockets, even made off the exact same mold, are not going to come out the exact same. And so my preference was to have 1 socket, X amount of feet. That also just saves me a ton of space. I found that when I moved to that, I used my feet a lot more. You know, maybe I'm doing a workout that 1 foot's really good for the first part of the workout, and then my everyday foot's better for the rest of it. I don't like the idea of carrying a leg. It just gets old. It just gets old for me. And so it's a lot easier for me to be able to toss a foot in my bag instead of a leg in my bag or carry my leg. I've also, in that situation, I have forgotten my leg somewhere. And that was a fun, like, your leg is here. Can you come get it? So I didn't want to deal with that. And so that's what we've gone with this. Again, the Levitate quick change system is my favorite one. Works phenomenal. You saw how simple it is. And yeah, that's just for me. The other thing you'll see with running blades is a posterior mount. So this is a distal mount, the bottom. A posterior mount would get mounted back here. The carbon fiber would wrap around it. It's all set there. I'm going to go ahead and switch this off because I think I'm going to be referencing that, and it's probably easier just to have my regular foot on. You will get that posterior mount, and I've used the posterior mount. I liked it, but right now, I really like just sticking with the 1 socket. I may find that as I get deeper into the running thing, that it may be worth having 1 socket that is purely designed around running and nothing else, and just kind of going from there. And what I may do in the future is do a posterior mount running blade and have a separate leg, and then have me something along the lines of a Levitate running blade as well, that if I don't feel like doing that one, I can just use that blade and go after it like that and just create options. So there we've got into like the basic equipment pieces of what goes into an amputee running. We got to manage our sweat. We have to and these are like the learning points. And so like these are the logistics. I'm going to get more in depth with like what actually comes next with kind of breaking this all down in terms of like the technical side of it, the training side of it, the learning side of it. But these are the logistics of an amputee running. So on to the next piece, where we are going to dive into learning to run, what's different, what's the same, and go from there.
Quick little change in the programming here. This is actually going to wrap up part 1 of this video. We're going to do it as a 2-parter because I could either cut out a bunch of information that I feel is actually really relevant and useful to the population I'm directly talking to in terms of who's going to use this information to go and run. If you are like a clinician or somebody with an amputee in your life, I want to start off with actually it's very cool that you're making a point and the effort to go and learn things to help your loved one. That's awesome. Thank you. The community thanks you for having that sort of mentality around it. And so, like I said, so this is going to be part 1, all about the logistics of the setup. And then part 2, we are going to dive into technique, basic strength needs, as that's going to be its own video, and the actual training side of things. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe.